I walked into this room a couple weeks ago, right, the day of the opening, and I came late, so nobody was in the room. And I walked in, and I was like, my mouth just went like this. My body moved into a state of happiness and joy, right? Just standing in the midst of all this color and beauty. So I am thrilled to be here. I love your work. I'm really just thrilled that we had this wonderful kind of synchronistic meeting. And then we just found out that we are both in our birthday week. So her birthday is actually today.
Hers is on Friday.
Yeah, so just a few, and we had no idea. Tanner had no idea. You know, it's so funny how we really gravitated to each other's work. So yeah, we can kind of dance around with the paintings.
I like to have my hands move around a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I love. First of all, why don't we start with just the title? I love the title, Rhythmic Allure, and just talk a little bit about that, and you know, just whatever, how you came to do this work, which is so unusual and beautiful.
So the rhythm's always been in me since growing up in India. Since going to theater and performances growing up with my parents, so everything was all about movement and rhythm. And growing up in my mom's garden, so form of nature that has a movement, right? Insects, they always have movements. I was always allure, like mysterious. I was always mysterious about things. So it's like, oh, rhythmic allure would be a perfect, theme for this exhibition. So that's where I came. And then I'm always creating drawings that's always rhythmic, like constantly moving. Movement, gestures, mark making, and colors, they always speak to me, has its own voice and narrative. So I'm always connected with everything that moves around. Even just changing of landscape, changing of like things around me from memory, surroundings. So,
There's so much movement. And say a little bit about, like, when you say you do studies of movement and studies, just, is that kind of the patterns that we see, like kind of the
studies of my,
yeah.
So I have drawings. I do a lot of 300 to 400 drawings a year. So that helped me understand my textile, my colors. So I call them my studies, my vocabularies, because that helps me understand the colors, the forms, the pattern. Each element has its own rhythm in my work. So each textile is creating a story. It becomes conversational. Each creature becomes like narrative, talking to each other. It has its own sound. And it also slows you down. You don't want to walk away. You don't want to constantly like look around instead of, sometimes we're always in rush, walking away from things. And I want viewers to just be calm and slow down and look at each piece.
So that's interesting because there's so much energy and movement. Everything is so moving and alive, but that it's coming from a place of calm, which of course makes sense.
Right? Yeah, because also the music is calms you down, right?
Yeah.
It depends on the music. It's like has that explosion of things and music, and there's the calmness to the music.
Yeah.
And how you connect with the music. Yeah. So.
And speak more about your connection to growing up to music and dance and performance and costumes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, I grew up in India. I was there till I was 11. So my family was always into theater. My parents, especially my father, would take us to watch Indian. My sister were performers, so they would take me to watch their dramas or their performances, and there was always costumes, and then they all had movement and textiles, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just explosion of colors and textile I saw, right? Instead of figures, because there was a lot of movement rather than figures, like hand gestures, and so that's where it started, like all these things like connected, and I'm like, it was like inner voice, inner, connection that always been like very festive. Like in growing up in India, we have festivals, right? Like Holi, and we have Navratri, which is like a festival of this deity, like a destroyer. So it's like 9-day festival, and it's like nonstop dancing. So I perform. I usually go and dance with the whole Indian clothing, with like you call gagras. It's like a big long skirt with everybody has a different outfit on. So like you see my patterns, each pattern is different. Each outfit, if you go to that performance, everybody wears a different outfit. Nobody matches. Like everyone has their own uniqueness. So that also plays with my work. Like everything has that own uniqueness, your own textiles and patterns. So it has that whole movement.
Oh, I mean, it's just the explosion of color. You know, I was here looking at them and saying, wow. I mean, it's like I had this feeling, wow, she doesn't hold back. She doesn't hold back. She just pours out her feeling in any and every color, and it's just really unusual and beautiful. You get a sense you're in a world.
Like that energy, and I also connect with landscape, like my mother's garden and loss of her landscape when I was in India. It's all concrete now. Like her garden is destroyed by builder contractors, which like that connection is like, but I'm still has that memory that I'm bringing to my work. Yeah. And the growth of things, like changing of landscape constantly moving. The earth is always like changing. The landscapes are always constantly going, but then we have that innerness that brings us back and takes us to like connect with the landscape or nature. That also has that movement of rhythm, inner rhythm.
Yeah, yeah, and fragrance. I mean, all the senses are coming out of these paintings. When you paint, are you painting to music? Do you play music when you paint?
I do listen to music.
You do?
And I sit on the floor. All these paintings are not done on the wall. They're all on the floor.
I was going to ask.
So I move around, I pour, and then I use my brush strokes, and then in between, then I sit on the floor, and then I move with the painting. Wow. So they're all paintings are done on the floor. And for hours, I sit on the floor. Like, how can you sit up for hours? I'm like, I find it more comfortable sitting on the floor than standing.
Oh my God! And so you are now. Is this what are you using to make these?
So I have
textures.
A lot of paint different size paint brushes from 0 to various sizes, and then I also use paint markers. So 10% is paint markers, and 90% is all paint and brushes. So I don't use as much of paint markers, but I would rather focus on my brushes because it just keeps me going with the rhythm, the whole marks, and yeah.
And do you use one hand or both hands, or?
To move things around, I use both hands, but then I use only one hand
to paint. To actually
paint. To paint, yeah.
Wow. And do you feel when you're painting that you are dancing?
Yes. I feel like I'm just always constantly moving. And I'm also, sometimes when alone in the studio, nobody's around, I just like to move around and perform with the music. And sometimes when I listen to Navratri, which is a traditional, I'm Gujarati, so where I grew up, it just brings back memories. And when I listen to music, it just has that energy. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to just dance. It's like a 3-clap dance and has like a whole circular dance that I just like. And then I get emotional because I start thinking about my parents. And I'm like, oh, I need to stop dancing now because, I think of them because they influence me with this whole cultural like understanding of, who I am. Also, even though I came to the States when I was 11, they still took me to these performances and made sure that I didn't forget. So, yeah.
And so by the time you were 11 and came here, were you already an artist? Were you already painting?
I always liked creating art since I was in India. I remember my mom's garden, my parents' garden, I would say. My dad would give me paintbrushes and he would give me sketchbooks. And I would sit at the corner and I would always create work. That creating, I don't know, imaginary things, and I would have people flying everywhere. So I had things that are always flying, and like you know. So I vaguely remember that kind of like memory that yes, I always did art. But then my parents always encouraged me to not, give up, just keep going. As an Asian parent, they were not strict. They were very liberal, very open-minded. They're like, just do what you want to do. You want to makes you happy. So and I decided to go to art, and then they were okay with it.
Yeah. And so then you studied here, right?
I studied here. So I did my middle school, high school, and undergrad and grad school. Yeah, I studied art.
Oh my gosh. And that was at University of Pennsylvania?
No, Penn State University.
Oh, Penn State. Okay.
And Temple University. Okay. Yeah, Tyler.
Yeah. And then you've had a lot of amazing kind of experiences as an artist, traveling a lot.
It becomes, I guess, as an artist, we need to travel, right? So we can connect with different culture, different form of art. So yeah, it's always fascinating to go to different countries and understand their own culture, understand their own form of patterns, textiles, their history, which really helps me also bring that in my work. Like this one, I named it Nairobi because I went to Kenya 2 years ago, and I was fascinated by the costumes and the clothing and the colors and the things I saw. So those are like all memories, and I took a lot of photographs. So I bring those colors back in, some of the textile back into my work. Like this, even the ground, it's like they're forming into a landscape of giraffes in a way, very abstract, right? So they're like, that's the first thing I saw when I landed. I'm like, oh, the giraffes were everywhere outside the airport. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a fascinating, like, such an exotic experience that I had. So it's traveling, which brings us together and understand.
Right, and feeds your visual and your
visually
sensory.
I need that.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. Oh my God, it's like you're giving your impressions of the world, and that is an incredible gift back to all of us. So the beautiful kind of ground of the patterns, and then the explosions, right? And so I don't know, there's just something about that juxtaposition that's fascinating to me, in terms of the kind of the pattern, and then the explosions and the pattern, kind of going back and forth between structure and no structure.
Yeah, and that's always I've been evolving in my work. Like if you see my earlier work, I had explosion of patterns everywhere. They're like creatures. They're creatures, like little insects everywhere in my painting. And also like these things drips are mistakes. They're like drip, and I paint, and then I'm like, I can make these things into little insects or something that conversational. So they're like talking to each other. They're like group of things that are like having their own conversation, like narrative. Could be so many. So everything's such a mysterious to me. Like maybe insects are talking. Like these things underworld, there's something that has their own connection.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they do. The nature has its own vibe, like slime mold and web that has like that mystery that has connects with each other. And that's what I'm always about, mysterious things and my own organic forms and textiles and that energy, that fluidity in my work.
Yeah, and joy and humor. There's a lot of humor, like these, like, whoop, what's going on there, right? And you're improvising with the color, like.
And they're flying. They're like constantly rhythm. Like there's the heartbeat of everything that surrounds us.
They're flying and they're grounded. It's like heaven and earth, right?
Yeah.
There's always this beautiful, I love the textures and just this, and then it explodes into something. It's like you're this is the cosmos, right? And this is the language that goes beyond our language, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you convey it and you feel it viscerally. Not only did I want to move, did my body move, but I wanted to dress like your paintings. Right?
Thank you.
It's like, I want to be that. I want to be that, right? So they reach out, and I don't know, it's very cellular, I think. There's something really organic that speaks to ourselves. Yeah.
I could never create something that's so depressing. So I'm like, then that's not me. That's not my energy. That's not how I am. So I just want to keep creating that has joyfulness, the colors, has sound, it has its own voice.
Yeah, and then what you end up doing is creating new worlds for us. Like you're not just simply reflecting what's going on in the world and kind of mirroring it back. You're actually creating new worlds for us to imagine, right? And so you're sparking our imagination, and that's our superpower. That